On the night of October 1st, 2017, lone gunman Stephen Paddock opened fire on a crowd of concert-goers at the Route 91 Harvest Music Festival on the Las Vegas Strip. At least, that's the official story. This is a video we'd rather not make, but it must be made. The truth about the Las Vegas false flag shooting must be exposed.
What most Americans still haven't really come to terms with is that the FBI has been a criminal operation for a long time. In fact, Robert Mueller refused to allow Congress to interrogate FBI informants who had been inside terror cells before 9/11.
Given that the earliest narrative was that alleged lone gunman Stephen Paddock was a 64-year-old white male who was radicalized by ISIS.
If these new reports bear fruit that ISIS is claiming responsibility for this, allegations that this man converted to Islam months ago.
And given that we know who the real powers are behind ISIS and the creation of ISIS.
There's an early 2014 email from Hillary Clinton, so not so long after she left Secretary of State, to her campaign manager, John Podesta. It states that ISIS is funded by Saudi Arabia and Qatar, the governments of Saudi Arabia and Qatar.
And given that there were early predictive programming warnings on local media about the potential for ISIS attacks in Las Vegas.
Yeah, Denise, the first thing we did was reach out to Metro. They tell me they do not believe this is a credible threat, rather an attempt to inspire and motivate some form of action. The new ISIS video calls for specific attacks similar to the Orlando Pulse nightclub shooting. And although Las Vegas is not mentioned by name in the video, the Strip is shown, and experts say the intention is clear.
The following conclusion is nearly inescapable.
This story gets murkier by the day, and that is the opposite of what is supposed to happen. It's impossible to know exactly what is going on with the Vegas shooting. We're not going to speculate. But it's obvious that there is lying and incompetence at the heart of it.
As ex-CIA agent Kevin Shipp has pointed out,
human life's cheap to the shadow government, folks, and that includes us. They've staged 80 coups overseas, and they've engaged in multiple false flags. I endorsed a book called Operation Gladio, The Unholy Alliance. I recommend you read it. It's by Paul Williams. He documents the CIA staging false terrorist attacks in Italy to make it look like the Italian government was doing it, and they killed at least 491 people to do that.
Operation Gladio is a perfect example, a worn-out, decades-old page from the NATO Global Shadow Government Playbook.
Deep state is run by money, power, and greed. That's what runs the deep state. The shadow government, their fuel is fear and intimidation.
Use black ops, deep state operatives to create a mass casualty event and then blame it on whoever you'd like in order to gain political and/or legislative advantage in the court of public opinion. More restrictions on Second Amendment freedoms? Check. Wide-scale rollout of invasive police state Big Brother surveillance technology? Check. Sheriff Lombardo is clearly surrounded by a foe. Gag orders preventing truth. On-the-record evidence ignored. It's all evidence that points to the fact that the Las Vegas shooting's official narrative is a desperate attempt to prevent the American public from learning that the entire operation was a Gladio-style, black operations, pre-planned false flag event. So, who are the real perpetrators of this unthinkable crime for whom the FBI and, by coercion, the sheriff is being forced to cover up? Ex-CIA agent Robert David Steele may have gotten it right in the early days following the shooting when he said this.
Las Vegas is absolutely a false flag event. Whether people died or not, this has been concocted by the Ziocons, by the deep state.
If Aaron Rouse's job previous to being the FBI special agent in charge of Las Vegas was the section chief in the counterintelligence division at FBI headquarters, his job was to stop, apprehend, and jail foreign intelligence assets or spies working within the United States. But as we now know from 9/11, the FBI isn't very good at bringing such spies to justice, particularly if those spies are from Israel. Why is that?
Since September 11th, more than 60 Israelis have been arrested or detained, either under the new Patriot anti-terrorism law or for immigration violations. A handful of active Israeli military were among those detained, according to investigators, who say some of the detainees also failed polygraph questions when asked about alleged surveillance activities against and in the United States. Documents say they, quote, targeted and penetrated military bases, the DEA, FBI, and dozens of other government facilities, and even secret offices and unlisted private homes of law enforcement and intelligence personnel. The majority of those questioned, quote, stated they served in military intelligence, electronic surveillance intercept, and/or explosive ordnance units.
Our purpose was to document the event.
Have you ever looked closely at the seals of our various government agencies? Here's one from the U.S. House of Representatives. It features 13 stars representing the original 13 colonies, and they are arranged in a very specific way. Given the influence of AIPAC over our federal government, and given the Rothschilds' influence over our entire monetary system since 1913 through the U.S. Federal Reserve, is it not possible that our constitutional form of government has been usurped by a foreign nation-state? Here's the seal for the U.S. Department of State. No wonder Hillary had a private server in her basement in Chappaqua when she was Secretary of State, and never went to prison for her crimes. And here's the seal for the Department of Justice U.S. Marshals, which features a popular Israeli symbol behind the 1789 soaring American eagle. But it doesn't end there. This is the seal for the U.S. Supreme Court. Again, 13 carefully arranged stars surmounted, placed atop the U.S. symbol for a free people, represented by a republic guaranteed to preserve liberty. Is it not possible that this foreign nation-state is behind or compromises much of the shadow government that ex-CIA agent Kevin Shipp has exposed?
And this is a former congresswoman saying, in order to serve Congress, one has to love Israel before you're allowed to love the USA. And she posted this: anti-Israel policies are anti-Texas policies. Apparently this is what's now going on. Back in May, Governor Abbott proudly signed the anti-BDS legislation into law, House Bill 89, which is known as the Anti-Boycott, Divestments, and Sanctions Bill, which prohibits all state agencies from contracting with and certain public funds from investing in companies that boycott Israel. The governor hosted the bill signing at the Jewish Community Center in Austin, and as you can see here, he sat in front of an Israeli flag, not the American flag, while he signed this. So that should tell you about the priorities. It's definitely Israel first and not America, but now they're making it to where your civil liberties are out the window in relation specifically to Israel.
Is it not more likely that this shadow government power is behind the Las Vegas shooting, which has been blamed on a lone gunman who is now deceased, just like Lee Harvey Oswald, just like Adam Lanza, and just like the alleged London bombers on 7/7?
Today we were running an exercise for a company, bearing in mind I'm now in the private sector, and we sat everybody down in the city, 1,000 people involved in the whole organization, but the crisis team. And the most peculiar thing was we based our scenario on the simultaneous attacks on the underground and mainline station. So we had to suddenly switch an exercise from fictional to real. And one of the first things is get that bureau number. When you have a list of people missing, tell them. And so it took a long time.
Just to get this right, you were actually working today on an exercise that envisioned virtually this scenario.
Almost precisely. I was up until 2 o'clock this morning because it's our job, my own company, Visor Consultants. We specialize in helping people to get their crisis management response. How do you jump from slow time thinking to quick time doing? And we chose a scenario with their assistance, which is based on a terrorist attack because they're very close to a property occupied by Jewish businessmen. They're in the city. And we chose a scenario with their assistance, which is based on a terrorist attack because they're very close to a property occupied by Jewish businessmen. They're in the city.
If the FBI could not bring those dancing Israeli Mossad agents to justice, even though they were caught in New York City on 9/11 and later admitted they were there to document the event, one wonders if the FBI is now also covering up for other events, which upon closer inspection might also reveal an Israeli fingerprint. Perhaps this is why Sheriff Lombardo and the FBI continue to obfuscate the evidence and the truth about what really happened in Las Vegas the night of Sunday, October 1st, 2017. Thanks for watching, and for real news 24/7, visit us at sgtreport.com.
There is no conspiracy between the FBI, between LVMPD, and the MGM. Nobody is attempting to hide anything.